Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Mia Hartman. She's here to talk about herself and her work.
Good.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you getting me on here today.
I usually have your boss on here. He's been on many times throughout the year, Dr. Les Lockridge, and
Yes.
but I guess he decided to have you come on and introduce yourself to the community.
Yes. Part of working with him means I get to help out, so he pawned it off on me today. No,
Yeah,
just
well,
kidding.
you know,
Kidding.
truth be told, is I think this is too early for him because I've known Dr. Lockridge for years, and I don't think he's a morning person.
No, he said that he will meet me later today, but 8 o'clock was just too much. So it's true.
Yeah, because by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, at the time we're recording, I've been up 4 hours already because I'm early to bed, early to rise, and that's, well, they say that makes me healthy, wealthy, and wise. I am neither any of those. So who are you first?
Well, I am a Vermonter through and through. I grew up in Lowell, Vermont. I was homeschooled, but I still was a part of the community through music and volunteer activities and things like that. And I moved to Nebraska in 2009 to start my schooling and career. I had started in healthcare before that, actually at Maple Lanes.
Right.
So where I started, then went to Copley, and then on to Nebraska in 2009, and then just recently returned, actually, July of 2022. So back home finally.
And how does it feel?
Amazing. I mean, everything about Vermont I took for granted. I think when I lived here,
Right.
you know, children and teenagers and, but being away has really given me such appreciation for the mountains and the air and the beautiful water and just
And
everything.
Your husband, though, isn't a local, you were telling me.
No. So I actually was in the same class as his sister, and she ended up getting married. I met him at her wedding, so kind of a classic meet cute story there. And then we ended up going together, got married, and I didn't realize at the time that it was near impossible to move a Nebraskan. So 10 years later, here we are.
Well, you know, I think so is he a generational Nebraskan?
Yes.
And that's really true, I think, of a lot of people, especially in rural America. It's because you growing up here, you know there's still people here. Mm-hmm. Some of them have hardly traveled outside of Vermont.
Right,
Nothing to
right.
say about move.
Yes.
And so I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And I did understand his hesitation too. It's a long way. It's not like just a couple of hours, so it's a real commitment. But we came back and forth a lot over the last decade and spent a lot of time here, and so the move just made sense. It made sense, especially after I had my daughter. I wanted to be closer to my family and that kind of thing.
So how does he like it now?
I think he really enjoys it. Honestly, looking at him, you would think he's a Vermonter, and that might be why I was attracted to him in the first place, because he just didn't seem quite Nebraskan. He just kind of looked like a Vermont hippie, to be fair. Right. So he fits right in, and he's does tree work, and so it's good.
Right.
Yeah.
So you moved back, and how come you chose a small practice versus hospital practice?
So I, the type of medicine I've known for a long time that I would go into medicine, even though the first part of my life was actually deeply rooted in music, and I did a lot with that. We can talk about that later, but I knew that I wanted to do medicine because I just love helping people, but I wanted to do it a little bit differently than just the mainstream. I care about people deeply, and I'm really passionate about people doing well and feeling well. And so at larger institutions, which I've worked at many, #1 or level 1 trauma institutions and huge hospitals in Rhode Island and all of these places. But what I note there is that you really don't have much autonomy. You don't have the leeway that I was really searching for to be able to provide the best care for patients. And a lot of that is time, in the larger settings, it's like every 15 minutes you're booking them up, you got to move along, you got insurance, you got all these things. And so it really took away from the quality of care I felt. And so I was really intentional in finding a small practice, and I was really intentional about finding a small practice in the area that I grew up and serving my community.
Well, I interviewed a doctor. He'd be probably about 100 now. I interviewed him when he was late 90s. He's gone now. Dr. Fioramonti, and Dr. Fioramonti was an icon here. He practiced medicine in a day on Derby's Main Street, where his office and house was in the building that burned, but it's being rebuilt, as in it was being fixed on Main Street. That's where his office was. But when he was early days of practicing medicine, he would actually sometimes have to have the person, he'd drive out a certain distance into Holland and have to have a person come down with a horse and buggy to get him actually to the house, because the road. And we did a very in-depth piece about the evolution of healthcare and how it went from patient focused to money focused, and that back in the old days, and he appreciated the new medicine, the new machines and that, but he said that when he come to the late 60s, he started realizing the medical world was going to cookie cutter healthcare, he called it, whereas everybody was treated the same. And he said you can't treat everybody the same. And so when he retired, he realized that the healthcare he used to practice was a dying thing. You sound a lot like Dr. Malik, who has his practice on East Main Street. He left in part the hospital because he really wanted to practice medicine. It wasn't just about money. And he's never been on the show, but I've spoke to him fairly at length, and I think you and him are on the same page.
Yes, yeah. I've met him actually and spoken with him, and I know we use a similar lab option for those that, need or have the insurance to have that covered, but he really caters to everybody, not just those that are fortunate enough to have good health care coverage with insurance. He makes it possible to see anybody that's there, and so it's one of the models that I am interested in learning more about. But even with insurance, I think it's still very important to put patients first, and it's the main point of my practice. It's just the standard, if you will. So being at a small practice like I'm at with Dr. Lockridge really allows me that kind of autonomy and that flexibility and understanding to be able to provide that type of care.
Because Dr. Fioramonti said this, and I think Dr. Lockridge agrees, because he's also my doctor. And sometimes all these tests are great, and there is a time for tests, but sometimes sitting down and having time to actually talk to the person, because that's the way Dr. Lockridge does, and he waits for you to say something that might, oh, I get it.
Yes.
And I could see you, do you agree that sometimes just talking to people, you can figure them out, or what's going on?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually, a lot of the, patients that I am getting, now as I'm building the practice and accepting new patients, it's the frustration of having labs drawn and then looking at them and they fall within this range, which our lab ranges, I can go on about that, but I won't today. It's another time. It's not really optimized. It's not where you may feel optimal, but it's our averages. And so there are many people, maybe most, that have labs that for their thyroid, for example, oh, your TSH, it's within the normal range, therefore you must not feel bad. And they become very frustrated because that is, unfortunately, the way our schools are teaching new providers is, you kind of go off of these algorithms as opposed to patients. So I treat patients, I don't treat algorithms. So yeah, that's kind of and in talking to someone and saying, oh, these are symptoms, and these symptoms are fueled or driven by these body systems. So there must be a discrepancy. There must be a dis-ease or disease. Something is not right. Our body strives for homeostasis or balance, and if something is not balanced, then that's when you have these symptoms. And so chatting with somebody, how their mood is, how their affect is, I can tell if a patient is at their wit's end or they're really frustrated. I can tell if somebody's really motivated, and a lot of it has to do with how they're feeling and how their experience in healthcare has been up to the moment before I was talking with them.
And just think, if you had to practice what Dr. Fiermonte called cookie cutter medicine, you wouldn't have time for that. You'd be in and you'd be out. Yep. And I know this show's about you, but I know I have a friend who went to the office. It's one of Dr. Lockridge's patients, and Dr. Lockridge, being a cancer doctor, which is good for you as well, just because for your patients, he had the friend of mine who noticed, Dr. Lockridge noticed that his PSA was just going up a little too quick, but it wasn't in the danger zone. But because he is a oncologist, hematologist, one of them, he says, well, let's get this checked out. And he caught that case of cancer at just about the very earliest stage you could get. So I think that's the luxury of you also having him as not a backup, but as a partner.
Yeah, it's wonderful to partner with someone like Dr. Lockridge, truly. I've worked with a lot of different types of providers with different, we'll say, personalities.
Right.
But anyhow, working with Dr. Lockridge is refreshing because he's always willing to chat and discuss and to learn and to listen to my feedback and vice versa. So I feel like, when a patient or a person comes to our practice, they get double the brain power a lot of times because we're able to discuss and work together in many ways and learn from each other as well.
Well, that's good, because I think it's very important for the providers just to have that connection and being on set. But on the other hand, I think it's great to have two, just because then you can bounce things off of each other too. And maybe, what is all right, you're not a doctor, but you're a nurse practitioner. What is the difference?
So a nurse practitioner is a nurse first. So I went through schooling. I got my bachelor's degree and worked as a registered nurse for many years. Most nurse practitioners, although it is changing a little bit these days, but most nurse practitioners have on average 7 to 10 years of nursing background and training before they go on to be an advanced practice nurse, registered nurse, which is an APRN, which is what I am. And then we go through back to between 2 to 4 years of schooling, depending on your program, where we have, the didactic, which is, the book learning, and deeper into the diagnosis portions and prescribing and understanding your body, and as well as the clinical portions where we're working for a couple of years alongside other providers as well to really hone in that craft. Because as a nurse, many will say when you go to the hospital, a nurse is, depending on what type of hospital, but at teaching hospitals, a lot of times the nurses are training new doctors on, hey, I've worked and I've seen this a million times. I know what's going on with the patient. Okay. And so you kind of have that, lots of hands-on learning that you take in as an advanced practice nurse. And different states have different regulations, but here in Vermont, it allows me to be able to diagnose and prescribe and work, in a similar fashion as a doctor. However, it's different because our models are different. Nurse practitioners because we're nurses, often are very people centered anyways,
Right.
and not as book black and white as some other models. So you know, and we have that kind of advantage of having that a lot of times bedside
Right.
experience where we're with patients for hours and
Right.
hours and hours on end. So it gives us a different perspective, and I think it's a really beautiful holistic perspective on care, and we can continue learning, and I never stop with my education. It's a
And do
daily
you
thing.
do women's medicine too?
So yeah, so with Dr. Lockridge, I know he is a hematology oncologist. I am not. I actually don't have any training in cancer specialty outside of the hospital setting. So my board certification is in family nurse practitioner. So it's a big umbrella, so I can see geriatric all the way up to pediatrics. But my focus here with Dr. Lockridge is women's health, hormone therapy optimization, and thyroid optimization, and medical weight loss. So those are the specialties, and primary care. I do primary care, but those are kind of some of the specialties that I can offer to the community that's a little bit different than the status quo primary care practice.
I also believe you do CDLs, don't you?
I do on Tuesday, CDL Tuesday.
Yep, yep. So we don't really have that much longer, but I also know you wanted to talk about an upcoming, is it broadcast you're doing?
Yeah, so as a part of the specialties that, or special services that I provide, I do a very specialized type of hormone optimization, and it's actually via pellets. And what it is bioidentical hormone therapy. There are different forms of hormone replacement therapy. There is kind of controversy around hormone replacement after a study in the late 1990s, early 2000s, where they showed that hormone therapy was horrible, it's going to give you cancer, all of these things. But what they didn't tell you, they weren't very transparent in their study, was that it was synthetic and it was progestin. It actually wasn't the estrogen and testosterone that you and I produce naturally.
Right.
So utilizing the exact molecules that our bodies are already produce has actually proven to be cancer protective. It's proven to be brain protective against Alzheimer's. It's proven to be cancer protective, osteoporosis protective, cardiovascular protective. And so I have a lot of patients that have symptoms like just fatigue, get tired all the time, chronic pain, depression, anxiety, weight gain, low sex drive, irritability, mood swings. All of these things have this stem from imbalanced hormones. We talked a little bit about dis-ease and how our bodies are craving balance. And as we age, you know, for women at 25, as young as 25, there starts the drop in our natural hormone producing. And for men, it's usually around age 30 is when that decline happens. And there's so many studies, and I've actually partnered with, it's called BioT. It's a company that is an advocate for safe and effective hormone therapy replacement using these pellets. A lot of men will be on testosterone and have to take 104 shots a year versus twice a year of the pellets, which shown to be more effective. And similar with women, we use testosterone and estrogen in women, and I've had just life-changing results, and it's actually refueled my zest for healthcare. I was really at a place where it was just so frustrating because I felt I was unable to provide care that was making a difference. I didn't want to just prescribe another medication, and in fact, I look at every option before throwing medications onto the table. Of course, I ask my patient what are their goals, what would they like, and it's individualized. I don't push my agendas on a patient. However, I give them all the options and what can we do to actually get to the root cause and correct that instead of band-aiding and masking with more medications and more medications. And I found that so much is tied to our hormones that and our thyroid function that people are able to just come off of medications, so much so that I've got protocols to come off depression medications because it's just And a lot of times it's women who seek out and they're just, more readily active when it comes to like, let me see what I can do. I'm feeling lousy. But I find that these women are feeling so much better. Next thing, they're dragging their husbands, like, fix them. And they're coming in together. It's really couples therapy is what it is. And then they're bringing their parents because it's so powerful.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and I love your energy.
I'm very passionate about it.
I love your energy, and I'm thinking, geez, maybe Dr. Lockridge, maybe I'll... No.
Well, we work in tandem together. He has sent, a lot of patients that have struggled with their thyroid and their hormones, and we work together with these individuals to really make a difference. And it's so simple to like get started. It's a few labs, it's a quick consult, it's an assessment form, and you can see if it's a good choice for you or not.
Well, Dr. Lockridge can't retire. Like my father just passed away at 88, so I got another 30 years. So Dr. Lockridge has 30 more years of medicine. And
did you tell him that? Because
no,
I'm pretty sure he's ready to hit the slopes here. So.
But so no, you obviously have passion, and I love it because I think, now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good doctors out there, but I know there's a lot of doctors, a lot of nurse practitioners and physician assistants, not just around here, but everywhere, who are just frustrated that they want to practice medicine and not making cookies, as in cookie cutter medicine. Yeah. And it's the way that, as back to Dr. Fioramonti, he said, once healthcare became more focused on big business and profits, is when it became increasingly hard to actually practice healthcare.
Yes. Yeah, it has become just a business. It really has. And we have to spend so much time, making sure we have the right code and all of these other things that really take away from being able to focus on patients and finding solutions and things like that. It's the necessary evil at this time, but I still, just continue to work towards being able to provide the care that I know patients need, that are going to make a difference in their lives, because if not, why bother, kind of. So
have you in your short time at the practice, have you been there long enough to say, because when you watch a person come in and they're not doing well, I don't mean just like a stomach bug or anything, but have you had enough time yet to see some good things happening with your patients?
Yes, actually, being able to I have a patient that just comes right to mind that has been able to really just get their life back. Struggled with chronic fatigue, with chronic pain, wasn't eating anything, but wasn't able to release that weight and just frustrated to all get out. And I've got other patients that, have been told over and over again, there's nothing wrong with you because your labs are fine. It's psycho, you're just making it up in your mind, or, and been able to listen and look beyond the numbers and actually treat my patient as patients, and they're feeling better, and they're feeling valued, and they're feeling listened to. It costs nothing to listen to somebody. And I spend a lot of my time with my patients listening to their story, because I want to get to know each and every patient. I want to know them personally. I want to know, okay, yes, this is something that we're working on. I want to know your goals and help you to achieve them. I work in collaboration. It's not okay, you need to do this, that, and the other. It's collaborative, because the person is the one that's doing the work. Right. So it doesn't really do me any good or you any good for me to tell you a bunch of things that you have no intention of ever doing. That's why it's up to me to investigate, to find out what resonates with you, what are your goals. Right. Your goals may be different than my goals, and so to prioritize that and empower you with knowledge so you understand where your health is and what things that we can do to get you where you want to be optimally.
I will say, I think you have a very good ability to communicate, because some doctors, they're very, very smart, or medical folks, but to actually, put it to the normal person's perspective, it's like they can't make that leap.
Right.
And,
that translation is
right.
tricky. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but you seem to have a very good ability to cut right through it.
Well, the way that I grew up, we were homeschooled, but we really got out, and I've been with so many different types of people and cultures, and my family, we traveled a lot growing up, and my music took me all over the world. So I'm a people person. I'm a chatty Cathy.
Yeah.
So it may come easier to me on personality wise, but I also feel, it's something that I work with, and I like to get feedback on, okay, how can I tweak this to make sure that everybody understands? How do I speak to someone about their health in a way that they're like, okay, I know what's going on with me, and I know what I can do, and it's a personal thing. I feel like it empowers patients, and empowerment is everything.
Right. Now, we only have about 2 more minutes left.
Okay.
What would you like to talk about in those 2 minutes?
Well, I guess I could tell you a little bit more about like the type of person I am, what I like to do for fun, I guess. So outside of medicine, I love to be involved with music and like to play with local musicians around. Actually, and I like to volunteer and fundraise for worthy causes. And March 11th in St. Johnsbury, I'll be playing with a group that's benefit for our Ukrainian friends that are here. Part of my church has a house that is hosting them. So this concert's in benefit for them in St. Johnsbury. But otherwise, I'm really just kind of down to earth. My husband and I and my daughter were working on our little land and homesteading, and I like DIY projects. I actually redid the floors at our practice with my husband, and so I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty and just have a good time.
So you're gonna use your musical talent at Brewfest, the fundraiser that.
Yes, I was voluntold. No, I was kidding. Les told me that would be a good opportunity to
Well,
get there.
I've been involved some form, and I've suggested that to Dr. Lockridge and I, that he and I put on a performance, and we've both said no, not a good idea. Have you ever been to their fundraiser?
No, I actually started at the practice I think the week or 2 after Brewfest, so I've heard a lot about it, and I'm really excited for the next one coming up.
Right.
But
I've taken part in some form throughout the years. So, but at this current location, this last year, it was a huge success.
Nice, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
can I tell you also about the webinar? I wanted
Sure.
to let them know. So I will be hosting a webinar March 23rd,
Right.
and you can email me to register, which is I think it can be at the bottom. It's nphartman.22@gmail. And there we'll be going all over the bioidentical hormones, how it can help you, help your family. And I'll be giving away some freebies. And so for anybody that registers, and we'll be able to get to know people that way as well.
I think that's the one thing about having a younger person like you, because you're bringing now webinars is no disrespect to Dr. Lockridge, but he's a man who still has a flip phone.
He does.
And
I respect him for that, truly.
and so that's a bit different, but I think youth like you, or like Kelby, the producer of this show, she's only 20.
Yeah.
And, she's already she's running circles around the producer, my friend, Todd Pronto. But she's a huge asset here at 20. Mm-hmm. And I think you bring youth, energy, and vigor, because tell you the truth, I may have to go home and take a nap.
Too much energy today. I'm excited. I will also do seminars in person as well. I'm just looking for an appropriate place to host them, so just so that it's free and open to the public, because I'm really I think that education is key, and everybody should have a good understanding of how our bodies work in health. And so, it's one of the things I'd like to give back to the community as well.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on, and you can, throughout whatever period of time, if you have something really important you'd like to talk about, we'll schedule another.
Okay,
show.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank
right.
you so much for having me today.
And thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.